We started our week by reading How to Be a Hero. In it, our main character Gideon wants to be a hero. And he ends up becoming a hero, but not in the way you might expect. In my story, my main character Willow wants to become a knight. You may have noticed I added that detail once I started writing. She thought she would become happy if she could make it to the city. But her father thinks she'll be happy if she marries a farmer. Those two things collide when her father sits her down to meet her suitor. The next day she runs away to the city. The trip is very far, and she becomes starving and sick. When she finally arrives at the city, she collapses, exhausted. An old farmer visiting the city finds her, takes care of her, feeds her, and sends for her father. Her and her father make up, and her father promises one day to take her to the city. Friday is our editing and revising day, so it is time to grab your green pencil crayon and read your writing out loud to yourself. As you read it, listen for your sentences. Do my sentences make sense? Do I have punctuation where my reader needs to breathe? You've probably already noticed that I have green marks all over my page, and that's because I've done this before, although the audio didn't work. So let me read it out loud, and I'll just point out some of the mistakes I noticed when I read this out loud the first time. Once upon a time, there was a kind girl, and her name was Willow. You'll notice I crossed off kind. I wanted a more interesting triple scoop word. She lived in a tiny house, and she had parents and lots of brothers and sisters. I've got a period at the end of my sentence, and I've got a comma in the middle. But it wasn't enough for Willow. Willow wasn't happy, which I crossed off and said dismayed, being a farm girl and one day a farmer's wife. She wanted to be a knight, a knight, with armor, a horse, a lance, and even a shield. You'll notice I wasn't sure about how to spell shield. I couldn't remember if it was I before E or E after I, so I underlined it, and when I did my editing process, I came back and I fixed it. She wanted to ride into town and be noticed. You know what I mean. So how does anyone get to be a knight anyway? She wondered. You have to be a boy, you have to be brave, you have to be strong. Don't you? Willow heard many stories where someone became a knight. She thought about those stories a lot. One time her father had taken her into town. There was a bard, a traveling musician, who sang a song of Sir William the Peasant Knight. And you'll notice all sorts of marks on this page because I've noticed my sentence isn't making a lot of sense. When I come back and fix my one sentence this week, this is the one I'm going to do. Willow knew no prince would ever come to her farm, let alone her village. The only way she would ever be noticed is if she ran away to the city. Now that I've read it out loud to myself, it is time to share it with someone. Remember our criteria for writing? When we write, we want our writing to be interesting and clear. So when you share with a partner, maybe a brother or sister or a parent, you need to hand them our writing goal sheet and tell them to give you feedback on two of these things. The first thing you want to hear is something they liked, something they thought you did well. The second thing is, what's something I could try next time? Maybe as they're looking over your shoulder at your writing, they're noticing you're missing some punctuation. So they could say next time try including periods at the end of your sentences. Now that you've read your writing out loud to yourself and a partner and gotten some feedback, it's time for our 3-2-1 check. So just to review, we can fix 3 spelling, punctuation, or spacing corrections. Spacing would be, do I have finger spaces between my words? Do I have an indent at the start of my sentences? Punctuation, do I have periods? Do I have commas? Do I have exclamation marks? Spelling, well, you've seen a couple of spelling fixes already. I fixed shield, and I believe there was one other somewhere in this jumbled mess. Second, you need some word windups, which in our case is adding triple scoop words. You'll notice I added peasant to kind because peasant helps describe her situation. It's more specific, gives me a better picture of who she is. And then I added dismayed instead of wasn't happy. Happy's a fine word, but if I use dismayed, you can really imagine that she doesn't have much hope. Finally, our sentence shakeup, and I'll show you what I did here because my sentence got really messy and I had to break it up into two. Here's the original. One time her father had taken her into town. There was a bard, a traveling musician, who sang a song of Sir William. That is a mess, and it's really hard to read out loud. That's my I need to shake it up and try something different. This is what I ended up with. One time her father had taken her into the village. While there, she overheard a bard singing. He played a song that told of Sir William the peasant knight, who was knighted by Prince Edward himself. I had to add some words, I had to add punctuation, I had to break up one big sentence into two smaller ones, but doing that makes it clearer for my reading. Remember, you can always use our no excuse list for some of the more common words in our writing. You can use a dictionary, a thesaurus, you can use an older sibling or a parent to help you with some of those spelling words. Now it's your turn. Set that timer for 10 to 15 minutes and start your 3, 2, 1 check.